The entire wolf kingdom went silent when the bride stepped through the enormous silver doors of the royal hall. Hundreds of eyes turned toward her, and within seconds, whispers spread through the crowd like fire through dry grass. She was dressed in a simple ivory gown that seemed almost too plain for the palace, her dark hair loosely tied behind her head, and a thin veil covered part of her face. But what caught everyone's attention was not the modest dress. It was her appearance. Her skin was marked with faint scars, one side of her face looked strangely pale, and an old birthmark stretched across her cheek. She kept her head lowered as though she had spent her entire life learning how to disappear. At the end of the hall stood the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf ruler in the Northern Territories. He had expected a beautiful bride from the legendary Moonblood family. Instead, he saw a woman whom the entire kingdom had already decided was unattractive. His expression hardened. He had been forced into the marriage to secure peace between two rival territories, but he had never imagined that his bride would become another burden he would have to carry. What he didn't know was that before the sun disappeared beneath the mountains, the woman standing quietly before him would reveal a secret that had been hidden for 23 years, a secret powerful enough to change everything he believed about her. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can give people a second chance and that true beauty comes from the heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people. The bride's name was Elara, though few people in the palace bothered to learn it. She was 23 years old and had grown up in a distant mountain territory where people believed beauty was a form of power. Her mother had died when she was very young, leaving her with only an old silver pendant and a strange warning that she had never fully understood. Her mother had told her that the scars on her face were not a curse, but a seal, and that one day, when she stood beneath the setting sun in the presence of the person who truly accepted her, the seal would disappear. Elara had never believed the story completely. She had spent years covering her face because people stared at her everywhere she went. Children laughed. Young wolves mocked her. Even members of her own family treated her as though she were an embarrassment. Her father had eventually decided that marrying her to the Alpha King would be useful because it would strengthen their political alliance. He never asked whether she wanted the marriage. He simply told her that at least she would have a roof over her head. The Alpha King, Adrian, was 30 years old and feared throughout the Northern Territories. He was tall, disciplined, and known for his strength. His silver-gray eyes rarely revealed emotion, and his reputation had been built on victories, not tenderness. He had lost his parents during a border conflict when he was 19 and had taken the throne before he was ready. Since then, he had learned to trust almost no one. His council had insisted that the marriage was necessary to prevent another war. Adrian had reluctantly agreed, expecting the daughter of the Moonblood family to be elegant, graceful, and politically useful. When he finally saw Elara, disappointment flashed across his face. He tried to hide it, but she saw it immediately. That moment hurt more than she expected. She had spent her entire life being judged by her appearance, and somehow the opinion of one stranger still managed to break something inside her. She lowered her eyes and quietly accepted the wedding ring. There was no celebration in her heart. Only the familiar feeling that she had been traded from one place to another. The wedding ceremony ended quickly. Adrian barely looked at her as they walked through the palace corridors toward the chambers prepared for them. Elara noticed the servants watching from behind half-closed doors. Some looked curious. Others looked amused. One servant whispered that the Alpha King had been cheated by fate. Another laughed softly and said that perhaps the royal family had been punished for something in a previous life. Elara pretended not to hear. That night, Adrian told her that she could have the eastern wing of the palace and that he would remain in the western wing. He explained that their marriage was political and that he expected them to respect the arrangement. Elara simply nodded. She had expected nothing else. But there was something Adrian didn't know. Every evening, shortly before sunset, Elara's skin began to change. For years, she had hidden the phenomenon because she feared what people would do if they discovered it. The transformation had begun when she was 13. At first, it was only a faint warmth beneath her skin. Then the marks on her face would slowly fade. Her eyes would brighten, her hair would become softer and darker, and the scars that made people stare would disappear completely. By the time the sun touched the horizon, she looked entirely different. Yet the transformation lasted only until sunrise. Her mother had called it the moonblood seal, an ancient blessing passed down through generations. According to the old legend, the transformation was connected to the emotional condition of the person carrying it. Hatred, cruelty, and fear could weaken it, while genuine acceptance could make it stronger. Elara had always wondered why the curse had chosen her. She had never understood why she had been born looking different during the day only to become extraordinarily beautiful by evening. She had never told anyone because she feared becoming a prisoner of people who would value her appearance more than her heart. That first evening in the palace, Elara waited until everyone had gone to sleep before walking toward the garden. The sky was beginning to turn orange-gray as the sun descended behind the mountains. She stood beside a stone fountain and watched her reflection in the water. Then the warmth began. The scars slowly disappeared. The pale mark on her cheek faded. Her features became softer, her eyes clearer, and the tired expression she had carried for years seemed to vanish with the daylight. Within minutes, the woman reflected in the fountain looked like someone from an ancient painting. But Elara did not smile. She had learned long ago that beauty could attract attention, but it could not guarantee love. She touched her mother's pendant and whispered a silent promise that she would never allow anyone to own her simply because they found her beautiful. Unfortunately, someone had seen her. Adrian had been walking through the garden after an argument with his counsel when he noticed a woman standing beside the fountain. He stopped immediately. For a moment, he thought a stranger had entered the palace. The woman turned slightly, and the last light of sunset illuminated her face. Adrian stared. He did not recognize her. Then she looked directly at him, and he noticed the silver pendant around her neck. His heart stopped. It was Elara. He knew those eyes. The beautiful stranger standing before him was the same woman he had married that morning. Elara's expression changed when she realized he had discovered her secret. She instinctively stepped backward, preparing herself for rejection, suspicion, or perhaps even fear. Instead, Adrian remained silent. He had spent his entire life surrounded by people who wanted something from him. Beauty, wealth, power, influence, everything around him had a price. Yet the woman standing before him was different. During the day, the kingdom had mocked her appearance. At sunset, she had become someone who could easily have commanded the attention of every noble in the palace. And yet she had hidden it. That confused him more than anything. He finally understood something painful. He had judged her exactly as everyone else had. He had looked at her face and decided what kind of person she must be. Elara returned to her room before he could say anything. The next morning, Adrian said nothing about what he had seen. But his behavior changed. He began noticing things he had ignored before. He saw Elara helping an elderly servant carry baskets even though she was a princess now. He saw her feeding injured birds in the garden. He noticed that she always thanked the kitchen workers and remembered the names of servants whom everyone else treated as invisible. He discovered that she spent hours reading medical books because she wanted to help people in the poorer villages. Slowly, Adrian began to feel ashamed. He had assumed she was powerless because she looked different. In reality, she was stronger than most people he had ever met. But the palace had already begun to sense that something was changing. Adrian's younger cousin, Seraphine, had always believed she would one day become queen. She had been admired for her beauty and had spent years trying to gain Adrian's affection. When she realized that Adrian was beginning to respect Elara, jealousy consumed her. One afternoon, Seraphine publicly insulted Elara during a royal gathering. Several nobles laughed. Ilara remained calm. She did not defend herself with anger. She simply looked at Seraphine and said that a person's face was the easiest thing in the world to judge and the hardest thing in the world to understand. The room became quiet. Adrian heard every word. For the first time, he saw the courage hidden behind her silence. That evening, he went to the garden before sunset. He found Ilara sitting beside the fountain. He did not ask her why she had hidden her transformation. He did not demand an explanation. Instead, he sat several steps away and simply remained there. Ilara was surprised. She had expected questions. Adrian gave her none. The silence between them was uncomfortable at first, but gradually it became peaceful. Then Ilara finally told him the truth.